coming in. What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to another episode of the Dead Boy Lounge, coming at you with a new setup on the new channel. We've been working on some stuff, and we're excited to bring it to you. Hope you guys dig it. And yeah, I'm pretty proud of what we put together here.
Dude, what is this background?
It's just like a creepy fucking building that I found. So it was like, hey, this could be what the Dead Boy Lounge possibly looks like.
Like you went in there, like
Yeah, like you stepped inside.
oh, you're fucking with me.
Immersion.
Yeah. My immersion.
Vector Seal, good to see you. Fuck, sorry. Anyway, yeah, I promise it's good to see you. That wasn't a Anyway, glad to see everybody here. Glad to be back again. It's been a little bit of a rough few days, but we're here.
Weeks since you looked at me. Can't help but do that every time.
Every time. That's okay. That's forgivable. Oh man, how are you, dude? How you doing?
I'm good. I'm getting there. We'll get there. Everything's gonna be okay, big cat.
Yeah, man. I'm happy. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy you're here.
Bro, we like each other.
Hell yeah. We got a good thing going on here.
There's a bromance. Let's be real.
Yeah,
That's
let's be real about it. It's fine. We're secure. We're adults. All right. Well, let's quit fucking around. How about we get into some news? Some
nudes.
Some nudes.
Let's read some nudes. Oh man.
No, I don't think we need that drama on this channel.
Oh shit. I mean, like, I got man boobs, but I don't want to be a titty streamer.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
That might have been inappropriate. I don't know.
I mean, it might have been, but who knows?
My sense and sensibility is so far out there.
All right. Well, dude, do you want to take us into our first story?
I would love to do that.
Absolutely.
Let me rearrange my... Okay. Stop yelling. Okay. So this one comes from actually two sources. This is from Dread Central and Bloody Disgusting. It's a two-parter.
It's a two-pack.
Kevin Bacon up for replacing Robert Englund as Freddy Krueger. Last summer, Englund had made mention at Monster ManiaCon that he'd like to see Kevin Bacon take on the role of Freddy in a new Nightmare on Elm Street. 3 days ago, in an interview with Bloody Disgusting, Bacon says he's down. He's not a kid either, but the rumor I've heard that I like is Kevin Bacon. He loves horror. He's a real actor. He's a character actor. Kevin was great in Tremor, great in Stir of Echoes. We need someone like that to take it on and redo it, exploiting all the new technology. Englund said in his panel at MMC. Head over to bloodydisgusting.com to see Bacon's interview and the full video of Englund's panel.
With an endorsement like that, it's kind of hard to hate it. You know what I mean?
Dude, Robert Englund is so fucking cool.
Yeah. He really is. Like, I've never heard a bad story about, like, a fan interaction with that guy. Like, he's always just been, like you said, he's always just been cool as shit. So, I mean, the legend himself is endorsing another actor to take on his role. I mean,
right?
Does it get better than that? I don't think it does.
He said something about I can't think of his name. The guy who played Rorschach, who was in the 2010 remake.
I didn't see his comment on him. What did he say about that?
He was upset that there wasn't enough like of Freddy's character in the movie. Is it Haley? Is that his name?
I can never remember that actor's name, but
fucking Bad News Bears, RoboCop, and Rorschach. That's what I'd like to remember him from.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I guess I'd have to go back and watch that remake again to really get a better judgment of what he did with that character. Because I can't really remember how much on-screen time he really got.
Not a ton.
Not a ton, and I mean, from what I do remember, I don't remember hating it. So I don't know. I mean, we may have to circle back on that one.
Right.
Time will tell. Anyway, let's move on to our next story. Coming to us from horrornews.net, Michael Almereyda's Tesla, starring Ethan Hawke and Kyle MacLachlan, debuts August 21st via IFC Films. Visionary inventor Nikola Tesla, played by Ethan Hawke, fights an uphill battle to bring his revolutionary electrical system to life, then faces rougher challenges with his new system for worldwide wireless energy. The film follows Tesla's interactions with fellow inventor Thomas Edison, played by MacLachlan, and his patron George Westinghouse, played by Jim Gaffigan. Also,
what the fuck?
I know, right? Wait, didn't he do like another dramatic role not too long ago?
Jim Gaffigan?
Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like he's kind
up.
of spreading his creative actor wings a little bit, kind of departing from comedy. I could be wrong. But yeah, also in this film are Donnie Keshawar, sorry if I mispronounced that, as JP Morgan, and Eve Hewson as Morgan's daughter, Anne. The film has already received acclaim, winning the Alfred P. Sloan Feature Film Prize at the 2020 Sundance Film Festival. Tesla debuts in theaters and VOD on August 21st. Check out the full story on horrornews.net. And that is it for the news. Sorry.
So he was in Chappaquiddick in 2017.
I don't remember that one.
That's fine. He doesn't have like a huge movie
Like resume?
yeah, like he's got a lot of TV.
Yeah, he has done a lot of TV. I think I could be horribly wrong about this, but I believe he's either getting ready to or he is shaping out to film another special here pretty soon once he's allowed to start touring again.
He's got, I just looked it up. He's got a tour called The Pale Tourist.
He's already gone beyond the pale. Now he's just embracing it.
He's a pale fella.
Oh, man. So we have kind of a fun show lined up for you guys. No movie this week, and no guests or anything. We're really kind of diving headfirst into the culture side of things tonight. And we're going to be doing some creepypasta read-throughs. This was actually Third's idea, and I am totally on board with this. What have you been able to dig up so far?
So I want to read my favorite, and it's Been Drowned.
Okay.
This is like a super popular one, and it's kind of an older one too. So chat, if you have any favorite creepypastas, please let us know. Like if you want to post it in chat. Do we have hyperlinks available?
That way. I haven't turned them off, so I'm gonna assume yes.
Okay, so
all right.
this is called Been Drowned. Okay, I need your help with this. This is not a creepypasta. This is a long read, but I feel like my safety or well-being can very well depend on this. This is video game related, specifically Majora's Mask, and this is the creepiest shit that has ever happened to me in my entire life. Having said that, I recently moved into my dorm room starting as a sophomore in college, and a friend of mine gave me his old Nintendo 64 to play. I was stoked, to say the least. I could finally play all those old games of my youth, and I hadn't touched in at least a decade. His Nintendo 64 came with one yellow controller and a rather shoddy copy of Super Smash Bros. And while beggars can't be choosers, needless to say, it didn't take long until I became bored of beating up level 9 CPUs. That weekend, I decided to drive around to a few neighborhoods about 20 minutes or so off campus, hitting up the local garage sales, hoping to score some good deals from ignorant parents. I ended up picking up a copy of Pokemon Stadium, GoldenEye, fuck yeah, F-Zero, and 2 other controllers for $2. Satisfied, I began to drive out of the neighborhood when one last house caught my attention. I still have no idea what it did, or why it did. There were no cars, and there was only one table set up with random junk on it, but something sort of drew me there. I usually trust my gut on these things, so I got out of my car and I was greeted by an old man. His outward appearance was, for lack of better words, displeasing. It was odd. If you asked me to tell you what I thought, what I why I thought he was displeasing, I couldn't really pinpoint anything. There was just something about him that put me on edge. I can't explain it. All I can tell you is that if it wasn't the middle of the afternoon and there weren't people within shouting distance, I would not have even thought of approaching this man. He flashed a crooked smile at me and asked what I was looking for, and immediately I noticed that he must be blind in one of his eyes. His right eye had that glazed over look about it. I forced myself to look to his left eye instead, trying to not offend him, and asked if he had any video games. I was already wondering how I could politely excuse myself from the situation when he would tell me he had no idea what a video game was, but to my surprise, he said he had a few ones in an old box. He assured me he'd be back in a jiffy and turned to head back to the garage. As I watched him hobble away, I couldn't help but notice what he was selling on his table. Littered across his table were rather peculiar paintings. Various artworks looked like ink blots that a psychiatrist might show you. Curious, I looked through them. It was obvious why no one was visiting this guy's garage sale. These weren't exactly aesthetically pleasing. As I came to the last one, for some reason it looked like Majora's Mask. The same heart-shaped body with little spikes protruding outward. Initially, I thought it was that since I was secretly hoping to find that game at one of these garage sales. Some Freudian bullshit was projecting itself in the ink blocks. But given the events that happened afterwards, I'm not so sure now. I should have asked the man about it. I wish I would have asked the man about it. After staring at the Majora-shaped blot, I looked up at the old man, who was suddenly there again, arm's length in front of me, smiling at me. I'll admit I jumped out of reflex and laughed nervously as he handed me a Nintendo 64 cartridge. It was standard gray color, except someone had written Majora on it in black permanent marker. I got butterflies in my stomach as I realized what a coincidence this was, and asked him how much he wanted for it. The old man smiled at me and told me that I could have it for free, that it used to belong to a kid that was about my age that didn't live here anymore. There was something weird about how the man phrased it, but I didn't really pay attention to then. I was too caught up in finding the game and getting it for free. I reminded myself to be a bit skeptical since it looked like a pretty shady cartridge, and there's no guarantee it would work. But then the optimist inside of me interjected that maybe it was some kind of beta version or pirated version of the game that was all I needed to be back on Cloud 9. I thanked the man, and the man smiled at me and wished me well, saying, "Goodbye then." At least that's what it sounded like to me. All the way to the car ride home, I had a nagging doubt that the man had said something else. My fears were confirmed when I booted up the game. To my surprise, it worked just fine. And there was one save file, simply Ben. Goodbye, Ben. He was saying goodbye, Ben. I felt bad for the man. Obviously a grandparent, obviously going senile, and I, for some reason or another, reminded him of his grandson Ben. Out of curiosity, I looked at the save file, eyeballing it. I could tell that he was pretty far in the game. He had almost all the masks and 3/4 remaining of the bosses. I noticed that he had used an owl statue to save his game. He was on day 3 and by the Stone Tower Temple with hardly an hour left before the moon would crash. I remember thinking that it was a shame that he had come so close to beating the game but never finished it. I made a new file named Link, out of tradition, started the game, ready to relive my childhood. For some shady-looking game cartridge, I was impressed by how smoothly it ran. Literally just like a retail copy of the game, save for a few minor hiccups here and there, like textures being where they shouldn't be, random flashes of cutscenes at odd intervals, but nothing too bad. However, the only thing that was a little unnerving was at times the NPCs would call me Link, and other times they would call me Ben. I figured it was just a bug, a fluke in the programming causing our files to get mixed up or something. It did kind of creep me out after a while, and it was around after I had beaten the Woodfall Temple, I regrettably went into the save files and deleted Ben. I had intended to preserve the file just out of respect of the game's original owner. It's not like I needed 2 files anyway. Hoping that would solve the problem, it didn't. It did and it didn't. Sorry as I'm reading this. I'm a mess. It did and it didn't. Now NPCs would call me anything. Where my name should be in the dialogue, it was just a blank space. My save file name was still called Link, though. Frustrated and with homework to do, I put the game down for a day. I started playing the game again last night, getting the Lens of Truth and working my way towards completing the Snowhead Temple. Now, some of you more hardcore Majora's fan players know about the 4th day glitch. For those of you who don't, you can Google it, but the gist of it is that right as the clock hits 0 on the final day, you talk to the astronomer, look through the telescope. If you time it right, the countdown disappears and you essentially have another day to finish whatever you were doing. Deciding to do the glitch to try and finish Snowhead Temple, I happened to get it right on the first try, and the time counter at the bottom disappeared. However, when I pressed B to exit the telescope, instead of being greeted by the astronomer, I found myself in the Majora boss fight room at the end of the game, the trippy boxed-in arena. Staring at the Skull Kid hovering above me, there was no sound, just him floating in the air above me. And the background music, which was regular for the area, but still creepy. Immediately my palms began to sweat. This was definitely not normal. Skull Kid never appeared here. I tried moving around the area. No matter where I went, Skull Kid would always be facing me, looking at me, not saying anything. Nothing would happen though. And this kept up for around 60 seconds. I thought the game had bugged or something, but I was beginning to doubt that very much. I was about to reach the reset button when a text appeared on my screen. You're not sure why, but you apparently had a reservation. I instantly recognized that text. You get that message when you get the room key for the Anju at the Stockpot Inn. But why was it playing here? I refused to entertain the notion that it was almost as if the game was trying to communicate with me. I started to navigate the room again, testing to see if there was some sort of trigger that enabled me to interact with something here. Then I realized how stupid I was. To even think that something could reprogram the game like this was absurd. Sure enough, 15 seconds later, another message appeared on the screen. And again, like the first one, it was already a pre-existing phrase. Go to the lair of the temple boss. Yes, no. I paused for a second, contemplating why I should press it, how the game would react. When I realized I couldn't select no, taking a deep breath, I pressed yes, and the screen faded to white, and the words dawn of a new day with the subtext of all bracket lines beneath it. Where I was ported to filled me with the most intense sense of dread and impending fear I've ever experienced. The only way I can describe the way I felt here is having the feeling of inescapable depression on a profound scale. I'm normally not a depressed person, but the way I felt there was feeling that I didn't even know existed. It was such a twisted, powerful presence that seemed to wash over me. I appeared in some kind of weird Twilight Zone version of Clocktown. I walked out of the clock tower as you normally do when you start from day one, only to find that the inhabitants were gone. Usually with the 4th day glitch, you can still find the guards and the dog that runs around outside the tower. This time they were all gone. What replaced them was the ominous feeling that there was something out there in the same area as me, and it was watching me. I had 4 hearts to my name and the hero's bow, but at this point I wasn't even considered for my avatar. I felt that I personally was in some kind of danger. Perhaps the most chilling thing was the music. It was a song of healing, ripped straight from the game itself, but playing in reverse. The music would get louder, building up as if you should expect something to pop out at you, but nothing ever did. And the constant loop began to wear on my mental state. Oh man, I forgot this is a really long one.
It's good so far, though. I'm digging it.
I love the story. Every now and then I would hear the faint laugh of Happy Mask Salesman in the background, just quiet enough so that I wasn't sure if I was hearing things or was just loud enough to keep me determined to find him. I looked in all 4 zones of Clocktown, only to find nothing. No one. Textures were missing. West Clocktown had me walking on the air. The entire area felt broken. As I walked through the ghost town, I didn't know whether it was the combination of the out-of-place textures and the atmosphere, and the haunting melody of the once peaceful and soothing song butchered and distorted, but I was literally on the verge of tears and I had no idea why. I hardly ever cry. Something had gripped me here, and this powerful presence of depression was both foreign and crippling. I tried leaving Clockdown, but every time I attempted to zone out, the screen would fade to black, and I would just zone into another part of Clockdown. I tried playing my ocarina. I wanted to escape, and I did not want to be here. But every time I played the Song of Time or the Song of Soaring, it would only say, "Your notes echo far, but nothing happens." By this point, it was obvious the game didn't want me to leave, but I had no idea why it was keeping me here. I didn't want to go inside the buildings. I felt like I would be too vulnerable there to whatever I was terrified of. I don't know why, but I came up with the idea that maybe if I drowned myself at the laundry pool, I could spawn somewhere else and leave this place. As I zoned in and ran towards the pool, that's when it happened. Link grabbed his head, and the screen flashed for a brief moment. The happy mask salesman was smiling at me, not Link. Me with Skull Kid's scream playing in the background, and when the scream returned, I was staring at the Link statue from playing the song Elegy of Emptiness. I screamed as the thing just stared at me with a haunting facial expression. I turned around and ran out and back into South Clocktown. And to my horror, the fucking statue followed me. The only way I can compare this is the Weeping Angels from Doctor Who. Fuck you, man! Why would you do that? I hate... Oh, God. Every so often, at random intervals, the animation would play, the statues appearing behind me. It was like it was chasing me. Or, I don't even want to fucking say it, haunting me. By this point, I was on the verge of hysterics. But not even once did the thought of turning off the console occur to me. I don't know why. I was so wrapped up in it. The terror felt all so real. I tried to shake the statue, but it would literally appear right behind me every single time. Link started to begin to make a weird animation I'd never seen him do before. He would flail his arms around or spasms randomly, and the screen would cut to the happy masked salesman smiling for a brief moment before I was face to face with that fucking statue again. I ended up running into the Swordmaster's dojo and ran to the back. I don't know why, but in my panic, I just wanted some kind of assurance that I was not alone here. To my dismay, I found one, but as I turned to leave, the statue cornered me in the cubby in the back. I tried attacking the statue with my sword, but to no avail. Confused and backed into a corner, I stared at the statue, waiting for it to kill me. Suddenly, the screen flashed again, and the happy mask salesman and Link turned to face my screen. Standing upright, mirroring the statue, looking at me along with his copy, literally staring at me. Whatever was left of the fourth wall was completely shattered while I ran out of the dojo terrified. Suddenly, the game warped me to an underground tunnel, and the reverse song of healing queued up again. As I was given a brief moment of rest before the statue started peering behind me again, this time aggressively. I could only take a few steps before it would summon behind me again. I hurriedly made my way out of the tunnel and appeared in the southern Clocktown. As I ran aimlessly in sheer panic, suddenly a Redead screamed and the screen faded to black as dawn of a new day, bracket, 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 appeared again. The screen faded in and I was standing on top of the clock tower with a Skull Kid hovering over me again, silent. I looked up and the moon was back, looming just meters above my head. Skull Kid had stared at me hauntingly with that fucking mask. A new song was playing. The Stone Tower Temple theme played in reverse. In some sort of desperate attempt, I equipped my bow and fired off a shot at the Skull Kid, and it actually hit him, and it played the animation of him reeling back. I fired again, and on the third arrow, a text box appeared saying, "That won't do you any good, hee hee." And I was picked up off the ground, levitated upwards on my back, and then Link screamed as he burst into flames, instantly killing him. I jumped when this happened. I'd never seen this move used by anyone in the game, and Skull Kid himself didn't have any moves. As the death screen played, my lifeless body still burning, and Skull Kid laughed and the screen faded to black, only to have me reappear in the same place. I decided to charge him, and the same thing happened. Link's body was lifted off the ground by some unknown force, and he immediately burst into flames again, killing him. This time the death screen The faint sounds of reverse song of healing could be heard. On my third and final try, I noticed that there was no music playing this time, and there was an eerie silence. I remembered that the original encounter with the Skull Kid, you were supposed to use the ocarina either to travel back in time or summon the giants. I attempted to play the Song of Time, but before I could hit the last note, Link's body once again horrifically exploded into flames and he died. As the death screen neared its end, it began to chug, as if the cartridge was trying to process a lot of something. When the screen came to, it was the same scene as the first 3 times, except this time Link was lying on the ground dead in position I had never seen in the game before. His head tilted towards the camera and the Skull Kid floating above him. I couldn't move. I couldn't press any buttons. All I could do was stare at Link's dead body. After around 30 seconds of this, the game simply fades out with a message, "You've met with a horrible fate, haven't you?" before kicking you out to the title screen. Upon getting to the title screen and starting again, I noticed my save file was no longer there. Instead of Link, it was replaced with "Your turn, your turn." Had 3 hearts, 0 mask, and no items. I selected "Your turn," and immediately when I did, I was returned to the clock tower rooftop scene of my Link dead and the Skull Kid hovering over it, with the Skull Kids laughing, looping again and again. I quickly hit the reset button, and when the game booted up, there was no more save file added. Below "Your turn" entitled Ben. Ben's save file right back where it was before. I deleted it at the Stone Tower Temple with the moon almost crashing. I turned off the game at that point. I'm not superstitious, but this is way too fucked up even for me.
Dude.
I haven't played it all today. Hell, I didn't even get any sleep last night. I kept hearing the reverse song of healing music in my head and just remembering the sense of dread I felt exploring the clock town. I drove back to the old man's house today to ask him some questions with a buddy of mine. No way I was going alone. Only to find there's a for sale sign in the front yard. When I rang the doorbell, no one was home. So now I'm back here writing down the rest of my thoughts and recording what happened. Sorry if some of this has been if there have been any grammatical errors and whatnot. I'm running on no sleep here. I'm terrified of this game. Even more so now that I relived it a second time, writing this all down, but I feel like there's still more to this than meets the eye, and that there's something calling to me to investigate this further. I think Ben is something in this equation, but I don't know what. And if I could get a hold of the old man, I would be able to find some answers. I need another day or so to recuperate before tackling this game again. It's already taken a toll on my sanity, I feel like, but the next time I do this, I'm going to be recording all my footage all the way through. The idea to record only came to me towards the end. So you see the last few minutes of what I saw, including Skull Kid and the elegy statue, but it's on YouTube here. I'm going to stay in this thread for a little while longer before I fall asleep to answer any questions you guys might have. This has multiple parts, and there is a YouTube video, which I'll...
Dude.
I'm going to full screen and then share my screen. And I'll be able to do that with audio.
Oh, we're going to play the video?
Yeah.
Ooh.
I've never watched this video.
Really?
So if there's Monka TOS, I'm sorry. Turn on the screen share. New application window.
If we suddenly get strucken down, send all your hate mail to thirdxtrick@gmail.com.
All right.
All right. Let's.
This might be like super loud. Dog just opened up my green screen.
What the fuck, dude? That's actually a creepy looking statue. I suddenly have like an all-new appreciation for this game.
Majora's Mask isn't my favorite by any stretch, but it's a good game.
I'll have to play this through again. Not to try and recreate what they did, because I never could.
I think someone made a ROM hack for this. I actually hate the moon when it gets close, by the way. Oh my god.
Holy shit. Holy shit.
Right.
Oh my god. Jesus.
Oh my god. I guess I can move the mouse.
My immersion.
My immersion.
Holy fuck.
Right there, it starts chugging.
Yeah. I'm flabbergasted at what I'm seeing right now. Dude. Holy shit. Holy shit. Dude.
Bruh.
What?
Be fucked.
Yeah, ROM hack doesn't explain that though.
Well, the ROM hack was made like way after this creepypasta came out.
Great job. Great job.
And there's like a whole
There's a whole series?
yeah. Like it's 3 or 4 parts, I believe.
Dude. Well, that ad in the corner is actually even creepier.
Jason.
We will have to do another Creepypasta episode and come back to this story.
Oh, it's a 5-parter.
Bro.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah. I can definitely see the appeal. That's fucking wild, dude. When did you first come across that?
Oh, dude, this one's old. Like the first one. God, like.
That's
So it
insane.
says December 19th, 2017, but I found this way longer than that. Like, this is the first creepypasta I ever read.
Is it really?
Yeah. This has to be like it was updated on.
Updated on what?
Like, this has to have been updated on 2017. Oh, man.
That's fucking crazy.
Super
dude.
good, though.
That's fucking crazy. I dig that.
So fucking good. Yeah.
Good story. Wow. Good find, man. Well, I'm not as versed as you are in creepypastas.
I'm bringing you in the culture.
You're bringing me in, man. Hook, line, and sinker. But my wife actually did tell me there's an app. Like there's a creepypasta mobile app, so I've just been kind of thumbing through them tonight. And I stumbled on one that I think actually could be pretty good. So we're going to dive into this one. This is called The Fleshless. I have no idea what this is actually about. So it's going to be a new experience for me as well as the chat. And yeah, let's just get right into this one. Some things are better left shrouded in darkness, never to be discovered. Unfortunately, I brought something evil to the light by pure random chance. I wish I had never encountered that creature. Looking back now, I would never got in my car that night had I known what was about to occur. I was taking a back road traveling down the mountainside because they were usually less packed than the main road. I had been traveling down the same stretch of road for quite a while when it happened upon it. At first, it was just the silhouette of a person, just outside my peripheral. As my car drew closer to them, I noticed they were doing something strange. They were facing away from me, pacing on the road very slowly. They were pacing so slow, in fact, that I had to come to a complete stop in order to not hit them. It was at this time I began noticing a change in my car's headlights. They got dimmer. I leaned my head out of the car window to ask if they needed any help. I got no response. They just kept pacing in the same sluggish pace. I called out to them again, this time slightly louder. "Sir, is everything okay?" This time I did get a response, one I'll never forget. They stopped pacing and stood stock still. Their head began to turn. It turned and turned past the point where any normal human spine would have broken. I watched as it slowly began to reveal a face with heaps of muscle tissue sloughing off, each one hitting the ground with a sickening splat. Its eyes were like cold, dead, greenish, yellow bowls that looked straight through you. Its entire body was completely devoid of skin. It finally spoke. "Give me your skin!" Upon hearing this, I was very shaken. I tried to start the car back up, but it was completely dead. I looked back at it. Its limbs were now completely twisted backwards, making defining pops with every irregular motion. It started to walk towards my car, making burning footprints on the ground like it had just crawled out of hell. I was just about to book it on foot when miraculously the car fired back up. I wasted no time in running the thing down until I heard it crunch beneath the tires. I sped off into the night, assuming I was out of the woods by now. This delusion would quickly come to an end when I heard something rustling in the back seat. I had no children and no one with me that I recalled, so this startled me. I looked back in the back seat only to be met with the same dead green eyes from before. It showed no remorse as it lunged for the steering wheel, effectively veering the car off the side of the mountain. Everything grew darker and darker as the car smashed into more trees and rocks than I could count. It got so dark, in fact, that soon I could see nothing, feel nothing. It was as if my soul had left my body. I watched on in complete terror as the thing began removing the skin from my body until none was left. I could do nothing to stop it, as it was perfectly assumed my identity. It then walked away into the mist of the night. One thing is now on my mind. My family will never know that's not me.
Outstanding.
A shorter one, but very good. I like that one. That was really good. Wow. Oh, I kind of wish there was more to that one. It doesn't say it's like a multi-parter or anything like that. Shook.
Shook.
Oh, dude, that's good. Wow. The author's name is Tiny. So if you want to check out more of their work, I suggest that you do. That was really well written. Let's see what else we can stumble across here.
I found one.
You found one? Give it to me.
Yeah.
Give it to me.
This one's called I Found a Letter from My Stalker.
Ooh. All right.
Yeah. So, I found this note nailed onto a tree in my front lawn. I really don't know how to describe it. I'll just let you read it yourself. Note start. I saw you today. It was your birthday. You didn't see me. You hardly ever do these days. Your skin looked so nice and healthy, and your eyes, they were beautiful. They were the most beautiful I'd ever seen them. You've grown so much. I remember how different you used to look when you were younger. I remember the day I first met you. It was 4 years ago. I was sitting at my desk, head down, listening to the teacher rattling off names for attendance. The teacher called out a name I didn't recognize, and a stranger's voice answered behind me. Was there a new student? The teacher didn't pause for a second, just continued calling out names. I turned my head where the voice had come from. I saw you, a pale thing, so thin, your eyes so red, at a seat that should have been empty. I saw the fireflies flying around you, flickering, dozens of them, never straying far from you. I saw them going through you and coming out through your skin, like you were a mist to them. Can you believe I thought you were a ghost? No one else seemed to acknowledge the new stranger sitting at the back of the class. Class after class, hour after hour passed as I waited for something to happen, for someone to notice you, for you to leave, for you to let out a ghoulish scream and claw at me like the horror story I was certain I was in, but nothing happened. Teachers came and went, my classroom laughed and slept, and you sat there. The bell rang for recess. The other kids ran to their monotonies, I'm probably saying that word wrong, for the day, leaving me and you together in the empty classroom. You stood up, pulled a chair from the desk next to you, making it face your desk. You turned your head to me and spoke. Well, you're slow today. Come on, ask me your questions. I don't know why I didn't run away screaming at that moment. Probably would have turned out better for me in the long run. But let's not speculate. I guess at this point in my life, I was pretty bloody lonely. I figured there was only a 50-50 chance you'd eat me, and the other 50, there was someone wanted to talk to me. Kid priorities don't make sense either way. So I went along with the flow. I walked over to your desk, sat down in your chair you pulled for me, and asked my question. What were you? You told me you didn't know. You said that once you were a child just like me, with parents and friends, you used to go to the same schools as me. Then one day, one ordinary day, when you were 10, you just woke up and you were like this, covered in fireflies, and no one could remember the moment they concentrated on anything else. No one, not even your parents. You told me of how I noticed you every day, how I'd think of you until recess every day, how I'd come to you every day, how we would talk every day, how we would meet for the first time every day for the last 3 years, about how I'd forget the instant I walked out of the room, how everyone would forget you, how the fireflies would make them, how for the last 3 years you'd been alone. Your story was very hard to believe, so I didn't. I asked what reality prank show I was on. You looked, well, unimpressed. and asked me to continue telling my story. I was caught off guard by the non sequitur. You said last time I was here I was telling you a story, a horror story about a haunted house. As you detailed the story, goosebumps pricked my skin. It was a story I'd been making up in my head, a story I hadn't told anyone yet. At that moment, a million reactions were open to me, all simultaneously adequate and inadequate. But the only thing that seemed proper for me was to finish the story for you. So I did. Halfway through, you interrupted me, asking if my mother had recovered from her sickness yet. I had to shake my head, a bit ashamed of the fact that I shared a private matter to a stranger. The story ended a few minutes before recess. My next class was in another room. You told me to go. Your steadiness took me back. You seemed so accepting of your fate, like you'd already gotten used to the idea of being forgotten forever. I was a kid back then. I wasn't a particularly smart kid, and I was probably one on the onset of a crush, so you can excuse whatever I did as an example of my childhood stupidity. I grabbed my scissors, pressed it against my arm skin, and dug in. As blood drew, it pushed towards till the cut formed the shape I wanted. Letter by letter, I carved your name onto my arm. Just so you know, I don't regret that. Don't get me wrong. Kid power might have made me do it, but it sure as hell didn't make the pain go away. It was one of the most painful experiences of my life. But even then as a kid, I thought what was happening to you was unfair. I remember how your eyes looked when you saw that, the confusion, how strange it was for you that anyone would want to remember. I remember that look so clearly. When I woke up the next day, I saw your name on my arm and I remembered you. I didn't forget. That day for the first time, we had a conversation that wasn't so one-sided. You said no one had ever done anything like that before and suggested I might have a mental illness. I won't deny it. That drew a little blood. As we talked, a creeping thought came into my head. Did you prefer it when I didn't remember? That night I was sitting up on my bed staring at your name on my arm, wondering if I could cover it up so I couldn't see it and give you back your privacy, when I heard a crash. I look up to see my bedroom window shattered and a dirty rock on the floor. I looked out the cracked window to see a dark figure on my lawn. My window scrolled really weird when I said that, by the way. You were outside yelling about how we should hang out. It took me a while to get used to how bad you were at talking to people. Years without practice made you quite a bit rusty. That was all right. We had a lot of time. For the next 2 years, we spent most of our free time together. Most of the time we talked, you'd tell me an aspect of your life and how you lived. You still stayed at your old house. Your parents never noticed the food had gone missing, never noticed the extra room, or that you'd stolen extra keys. One night I confided in you that I was beginning to think you were part of my imagination, Fight Club style. Spoilers. After all, what could you do to me that I couldn't do to myself? You spent the next month or so trying to leave bite marks on my ear or neck to prove a point. I still have a few scars on my ear, so I guess you did. Looking back, I could see the warning signs even then. Your skin seemed to get worse and worse, paler and paler, and you'd rubbed your eyes raw. It was winter. We had our wake-up call. It was in the winter we had our wake-up call. The morning began like any other. I woke up, brushed my teeth, and started searching for clothes to wear. It was a winter morning, and my room was dark. I didn't see your name on my arm. The cold sent shivers through my body, and pulled out a long-sleeved jacket. A small bell rang in my head. Don't you usually roll your sleeves up? Yeah, why did I? That was annoying. I finished tidying up and headed back to school on the bus. On the bus, I felt oddly content, like something I'd been worrying about just disappeared. I walked up the school stairs, down the hall, through my classroom door, and sat down on my desk. The same feeling of a burden forgotten hounded my mind. What was I forgetting? When recess came, I sat at my desk while my classmates ran outside. It felt like a ritual, but I didn't know what for. I was contemplating just walking out to join them when I heard it. It was something small in my mind, like a whisper. It came over and over, incessant. It sounded like my name. I knew this was strange, but it was worth my attention. But I felt oddly calm. Everything would be all right. Everything would be fine. Just ignore it. I sat there at my desk, my mind a war zone between two conflicting, contradictory voices, when I felt a force tugging on my sleeve. The moment I noticed as my jacket sleeve tore open, I saw your name on my arm, and then your hand had ripped my jacket open. You'd been yelling at me for over 20 minutes. I think that was the moment we realized how on edge your friendship really was. One accident away from complete erasure. We spent most of the next year in the town library together trying to find out what the fireflies were. It wasn't really a problem for me because my mother treatment, my family couldn't afford to go on any trips, and our house didn't have any heating anymore. So I was happy to spend my time with you. Trying to find information was a puzzle in and of itself. After all, I would read about people I couldn't remember, and how would you find out that there was who was special when no one could even remember about them to record them? We found our old family trees and records. Individually, we would write down the name of everyone in the book on two lists. Then we would compare. The names I hadn't remembered to write down, but you had, would become the focus. They were the names that were under the curse of the fireflies. We compiled a list of suspicious books, books we thought could help us, because they were written by or were about the people we were searching for. I read the books with a list of names side by side, reading it again for every page of the book. You scoured the internet on the library's computers on the lookout for articles about the people. Our search would lead us to the first glimpse of what we got was really happening to you. It was late at night when we found the picture. I was a bit drowsy at the time, and I was about to nod off when I heard a sharp intake of breath. I turned to see you standing up, pointing at the screen. I didn't see anything noteworthy. On the screen was a picture of a clearing somewhere in the woods. You held up your piece of paper where you'd marked out two names. Susie Appleby Reagan, 13, Terry Appleby Reagan, 12, siblings. For a moment I saw the paper and the screen side by side, and then I saw them. Two figures emerging from the woods towards the camera. They were almost humanoid, with the exception their limbs were stretched out to nightmarish proportions. Their blank, white skin was that of pure albino, and looked more like tree bark than anything you expected to find on a mammal. A cloud of fireflies surrounded the duo. The shorter one looked emaciated. I could see their rib cages around their eyes. God, their eyes. So small, so red. The taller one with its white hair didn't look alive anymore. They were little more than skin wrapped around a skeleton. Fireflies swarmed out the pair's empty eye sockets. Both reached out for the cameraman. I looked at the article surrounding the picture. It was a blog posted by a hiker. 20 years after the last mention of the two kids, the picture was a mysterious cameraman as well. He'd been wanting to go to the woods pictured for a while now, but he'd never actually remembered going there. The picture had just appeared on his camera one day out of the blue. For a moment I looked at your face, your thin, pale face, with those red-veined eyes. Would that be you when my scar faded? Just a walking horror I'd glimpse, then forget? We'd work through our reading list at a much faster pace starting from that moment. Maybe we should have gone slower. At least every book, every website we'd left untouched promised hope. The books that we finished, tossed aside, promised nothing but the clearing in the woods at one's future. And we tossed aside a lot of books. I believe I tore through 3/4 of my reading list before I stumbled across the journal. Oh God, that horrible, horrible journal. The journal used to belong to a mental patient, and Joey, who claimed to be a serial killer. He was locked up in an asylum when the police discovered his supposed victims never existed. He was diagnosed with a need for attention and shoved away. They should have electrocuted him. They should have fried him until his flesh melted and his hair burned. In this journal, he talked about how he carried out his killings. He knew things, bizarre and disturbing things that no one else knew. He knew of strange creatures that lived in the woods. Of them, his favorite were the fireflies. I'm not going to tell you how he summoned these things. I trust you. I trust you more than anyone, but a thing like this belongs on the ground more than it ever will to the human mind. In the end, it's sufficient to know that these things were not fireflies. Joey would start the ritual by talking to a kid, anyone he pleased. He could take them at any time, in the dead of night from their own homes, or in broad daylight in their front yards. It didn't matter if he was seen. He'd take them to the house and drag them inside. Usually an Amber Alert came up that at that point he didn't care. Like I said, it wouldn't matter soon. He'd drag them to a special room in his house. Here the fireflies would come latch onto them. Now nobody was searching for the kids. Not the police, not the parents, nobody. From then on, he could do whatever he wanted to the kid. He'd get bored of them after a day or two, after the child was broken, and at that point he disposed of them. Hacksaw, kitchen knife, anything would work. He detailed a large pit of bodies he kept in the woods swarming with bugs. One day I guess he got bored of that too, so he went right to the police station and turned himself in. Not on account of guilt, no. He just wanted someone to know about the stuff he was doing. Sick bastard. Oh, don't get the wrong idea. He never stopped killing kids. The asylum doors didn't stop him from doing what he liked. It just made him improvise. He made a new way. He modified the flies so they could survive without a host, just in a dormant state. When a child, he specified the age, would approach the swarm, it would latch on and begin its effect. Over the years, the child would warp horribly into the things you saw in the woods. I wish I could hate him in peace. I wish I could say the world owed him nothing. But that wouldn't be true. He detailed a way out. On the final page, it was an exact explanation of how to get rid of the fireflies. You must have seen something on my face because at that moment you asked if I had found anything. I said no and closed the book. A few minutes later, you shut down the computer. You picked up the last book and went through it yourself when you reached the cover and tossed it aside. I asked what we should do now. You said it was all right. I could go home. We'd talk about it in the morning. I stood up and walked past the shelves of books. I headed to the library entrance and stopped right outside the door and waited. I waited until I heard sniffing sounds. I sneaked back to your table where you were quietly sobbing. You had your head in your hands. I sat back as you raised your eyes to me. You said you wish you'd never met me. How happy you were when you had nothing to lose. How I ruined your life. You never really gotten better at talking to people. That was the worst confession I'd ever heard. Remembering how we kissed that night, I remember your hands gripping my hair. I remember that kiss. I wish I could have just been a kiss. I'm sorry I ruined that moment when my arms were around you. I was close enough to steal a firefly without you noticing. I remember holding the firefly in my hand. Remember how it struggled until it didn't. Until it was a part of me. The firefly shifted, then came over to me and left you. I remember the familiar look in your eyes, the confusion. I never want to see that confusion in your eyes again. You deserve to be loved, and you deserve to know that. I wasn't really living anyway. You reached for me and I pulled away. As the last lights of recognition faded from your eyes, and then you were just staring at a stranger, walking away into a crowd of strangers. That was a year ago. You've gotten so much better since then. You've had so many friends now. So many people at your birthday party. You also look so much healthier. I haven't been as fortunate. My skin's gotten a lot paler, and my eyes hurt all the time now. I couldn't go to school like you did all those years. I haven't wasted my time, though. I found Joey's pit. The bodies, there were so many bodies. There's a grave for those children now. Without me, my mom could afford her surgery. She looked so happy. Just yesterday, I saw her playing with my baby brother. I saw you crying yesterday. You were with your friends laughing for a brief moment when your eyes met mine, and then they were so wet. I think I'm going away. For good. I think. You're not going to be happy if I stick around. I'm so happy I met you, and if you don't remember me, no end. Sometimes I go through depressive episodes. I feel so lonely, even with my friends. I don't know what's going through my head during these times, and sometimes I'd end up in a bathtub, a knife in my hands, and my wrist bleeding. Until now, I thought I was cutting my wrist. I wasn't. The cuts. They're letters. I've been carving a name into my arm.
Holy shit.
That was such a good story,
That was
bro.
a good one. Holy goddamn, dude! I was like roped in the entire time. Who
There were
wrote
some
that?
twists and turns. Credit to MinisterOfOwls on
Minister of
Reddit.
Owls, dude. Great job. That was a great story. I am so glad we did
There's a
this.
Creepypasta Reddit, and it's like so good.
Well, I'll have to dive back into that one next time we do this, because wow, that was good. That was good.
Right.
I think for the recording, this next one's going to be the last one. But if you want to continue to read a couple more just for the chat after this, we can do that.
Okay.
All right. This one is also coming from the Creepypasta app. This is called Your Future. The following is an archived blog post made by blogger Marksman12. The site has been since deleted and the user has not surfaced since, at least not under the same username. March 12th, 2018. Wrong scene. There we go. This might be a cautionary tale, just forewarning. Maybe you can learn something from my experience, or maybe you can't. I don't know anything anymore. I've been studying abroad in Rome for the semester, and right now I'm about midway through. While they give us meals during the weekdays, we're on our own for the weekends. As such, me and several of my friends often get together to go out to eat somewhere, or grab something to take away. Jack and Maddie and myself decided to grab some burritos from this Mexican place, so we met up in the lobby of the campus, then walked out the large gate, designed to keep out shady people, I imagine. The campus is on top of this hill, and you just have to walk down some steps to get to all sorts of restaurants and shops. If you want to get to the most well-known places, such as the Pantheon or the Coliseum, you have to go further and cross the bridge. But the Mexican place, La Posada, was just down the steps and a short walk away. We were just heading out the gate and starting to walk down the winding road that would lead to the steps, just sort of talking and joking around. It was around 7 p.m. at night, and the sky was dark. The nightlife would be in a few hours, and Trastevere, the area of Rome, was always popping. Suddenly, this guy approached us. He was around our age and just a little taller than me. This seemed odd to us, and I looked him over. No Italian man would approach you like this with an innocent reason. However, the guy greeted us in English, American English. "Hey guys," he said, "what are y'all doing?" "Hey," I said, "are you at American University?" "Yeah, man, guessing you guys are at CU?" he asked. "That's right," Jack said. "What's up?" Maddie seemed to eye him suspiciously. "Just kind of walking around, he said. He had an odd sort of glint in his eye. I don't know how to explain it, but he looked kind of far away, if that makes any sense. "We're heading down to get some food," Jack said. "Ah, nice," he said. The guy stepped around for a minute, still a little distant. "Hey, you guys mind if I do something?" the guy asked. "What's that?" asked Jack. "Well, I have this thing where I look into people's faces and sort of see what God has planned for them. Do you mind if I do that to you guys?" he asked. None of us had a response. I was kind of confused by his question, and Jack looked like he hadn't been expecting that either. It was Maddie who spoke up. "No, I think we're good. We're just going to go down to get burritos at La Posada," she said. "Ah, okay. That's a good place. Good burritos," he said, looking more distant. "Yeah," said Jack. "Well, have fun," he said. "Yeah, see you," I said. We continued down the hill and left him behind. "That was kind of weird," said Jack. We were eating burritos inside La Posada. I got the chicken one as usual. "Yeah, that guy was kind of creepy," said Maddie. "Don't know what his deal was." I was kind of intrigued, I said with a laugh. I mean, I would have done it. "Wonder what he would have said Jack. "Still, it's kind of weird. If he was trying to rip us off or something, well, that's not something Americans do to other Americans." "Yeah, maybe he was genuine, just kind of crazy," I said. We walked around after eating. At night, the streets are usually filled with all sorts of people. You also see lots of street performers. As we walked by, we noticed some guy swinging around a stick with fire on both ends, in an organized sort of martial arts kind of way. He attracted a small crowd who were impressed by his fire swinging, including the three of us. "Ah, look, a firebender," remarked Jack as he was watching him swing around his fire stick. The guy dropped the fire stick, then hastily picked it back up and continued swinging it around, only to drop it again shortly after. "Guess he's an amateur firebender," said Maddie. "He's got some work to do. Hone his skills," said Jack. We continued watching him. He seemed to have lost his mojo and he was dropping it frequently. The small crowd was slowly dispersing and walking away. What do you think he would have done? I asked. With his life, you mean? This doesn't look like the height of his career, laughed Jack. No, not him. The guy back there. What would he have said to us? I asked. Some sort of horoscope, I'm sure, Jack said, rolling his eyes. Well, I'm just curious. You think he would have claimed to know our futures? I said. It would have just been some bullshit, said Maddie. Probably, I agreed, but something in me became uneasy. I wonder, though, can any of us know our future? We can't. It's impossible, said Jack, and neither can that guy. I'm just curious, I said. I don't know. What would that guy have said my future was? Jack pointed to the struggling firebender. Well, I can tell you, that guy is your future. Get ready to become him. I laughed. Yeah, okay. We moved on to talk about other things, but I just couldn't get the uneasiness out of my mind. We headed back up the hill. The guy wasn't there anymore, so we just went back through the gate and into the main campus building. I was sitting in my room on my laptop, just sort of watching random videos. I wasn't really paying any attention to any of them. They were just sort of going on in the background, and I didn't want to turn it off either because that would leave me alone with my thoughts. The videos functioned as a good distraction from what was eating away at me. I actually do that quite often myself sometimes. But eventually I couldn't ignore it any longer, and I just closed my laptop suddenly. I was overcome with anxiety, with a pressing curiosity. What the hell was my future? What would that guy have told me? I couldn't take it anymore, and I walked out of my room, down the stairs, out the door, and down through the gate. It was later now, around 9:30, and just as dark. There were vague sounds of partying from down the hill, but mostly it was eerily quiet as I walked around, retracing my steps. Where was that guy? Maybe he had gone back to his own campus. I eventually saw him, just sort of walking around in place. A cloud of smoke surrounded him, and I saw he was holding a cigarette as he kind of walked around a bit. Hey, I said. He turned around and raised a cigarette in greeting. Hey, he said back. Did I see you earlier? Yeah, I was with my friends. Oh, right. How are the burritos? Pretty good. Look, I changed my mind. I approached him while taking a deep breath. You said you could see what God has planned for me? He nodded, slowly taking a drag on the cigarette. Yeah, he said. I took another step closer. Can you see my future? I asked. He looked me over. Sure, no problem. He put his hand on my shoulder, which made me kind of uncomfortable, but I was too curious to stop him now. He looked deep into my eyes, which also made me uncomfortable, but I returned the stare. His eyes were gray and bottomless, and they seemed to pour over mine. He stared at me for a good 30 seconds or so. I could definitely see why Maddie was uncomfortable with the whole thing. Suddenly, his eyes widened, his pupils shivering, and he pulled his hand away from my shoulder as he took a step back. You, he said, his voice uncharacteristically tense. He dropped the cigarette. What? I said, looking at him strangely. This was kind of surprising and unnerving me. He was backing away. I'm sorry, man. I can't tell you your future. What? Why not? I asked, kind of annoyed. Honestly, I had thought he would give me some sort of vague horoscope and that would be it. But I was curious enough to want to know for sure. But now, what was he even doing? Because you don't have one, he said, and he swallowed. Wait, ignore that. Forget I said anything. I gotta go, man. He started backing away faster and turned around. Hey, I caught up with him. What does that mean? I have no future? What are you talking about? Listen, man, I'm probably wrong. I should just get going now, he said. You can't just say something like that and run away, I protested. Come on, what did you mean? I have no future? He looked down and sighed. I shouldn't have said anything. Why did I? He looked up and stared me down. You really want to know? I nodded. Fine. What I meant was, you're about to die. What? I said. Before morning. You won't make it till tomorrow, he said. I stared at him, confused and afraid. How do I know? I said it before. I look into people's faces and see what God has planned for them. I got a vision of your death. He sighed. I'm sorry, man. There's nothing more I can say. Hang on. How am I supposed to die according to you? I asked, finding myself frustrated and annoyed, convinced this was some elaborate prank he was pulling. Well, I guess it wasn't that elaborate, but that had to be the only explanation. right? I can't tell you that, man, he said. He started backing away again. Really, I'm sorry. Sorry it had to turn out this way for you, but there's nothing more I can say. He suddenly turned and darted away up the hill. I was dumbfounded, but I started running after him, up the hill, away from the street lamps, into darkness, but I quickly realized I had lost him. He seemed to have disappeared, and now no one was around me. I looked around, breathing heavily, from the street lamp a little ways down where I had come from, to the gate and the campus near it, to the vague club and restaurant lights further down, to the darkness of the road further up the hill. I swallowed. This was a mistake, I said to myself, and I walked back down the hill and up through the gate of the campus. I was sitting still on top of my bed, listening to music. I cycled through several songs I really liked, trying to get into a better mood, but it wasn't working. My mind was elsewhere, focused on my apparently impending death. My roommate was out partying, so I was completely alone in the room. The room felt increasingly still and creepy, and I found myself shaking. You won't make it till tomorrow. What did he mean? I mean, I knew what he meant, but still, how was that even possible? That I would die? What would even kill me? I didn't have any health problems, certainly not any that could just kill me out of the blue. The campus was secure, with guards watching the gate 24 hours a day, so no one could break in easily. So what could it even be? Some freak accident? I decided this was absurd. It was like one of those chain Facebook posts or YouTube comments, you know, the kind that say you'll die some horrible death if you don't repost it. I used to be freaked out about those, but of course I didn't actually die when I didn't repost it. It was the same thing here, wasn't it? Except this seemed to me on some deeper, perhaps subconscious level, much different than that, and much more serious. I mean, what would that guy gain from telling me I was gonna die? It could be some sick prank, sure, but somehow that seemed unlikely to me. This guy, I got creepy, mysterious vibes from him, but he seemed serious enough not to be a prankster. There might not be a logical reason for me believing that guy, but maybe that's because it went beyond logic. I mean, you can't entirely predict the future through logical reasoning, right? There has to be some higher force at work. Or the guy was crazy and delusional. I couldn't tell which. Nothing I was doing to calm myself down was working. I just wanted to see someone else. I was so alone in my thoughts and fears. My roommate. Where the hell was he? No distracting YouTube video was working. Nothing was working. I found myself breathing rapidly, and I could feel my heart beating faster than ever. Hours passed, and I felt like I was going insane. Time to die, I kept thinking. That line from a movie. No, not today, I said to myself. You won't make it till tomorrow. You have no future. Not today, damn it. I was outside the gate again. My fists were clenched. There was a cool breeze. Too cool. Cold. I started running up the hill. It was darker. The wind was stronger. And any vague noises of partying were snuffed out. I kept running all the way up. The light of Rome blurry down below. I was at the top of the hill. It overlooked the whole city. A good view. The lights down low. So inviting they were. And it was so cold, so dark up here. I longed to be down there, warm, filled with light. Excuse me. I reached for the light but couldn't grab it. So I took a step forward, and then my nerves turned loose. An electric shock from my toes to my spine. Falling. This is the end. Finally, I could reach the warm light. I was wandering through the deserted streets of Travestaire. All the lights were out and the restaurants were closed. No one was walking around right now. The narrow streets, once full of life, were now entirely devoid of it. It was cold and dark, and no one was around. A bright, flashing fire. I looked over hopefully. It was the firebender. He was still waving around his fiery stick even though no one was watching him. He saw me. I saw him. Suddenly he ran towards me with an inhuman yell and swung his fiery stick at me. I jumped to the side, surprised, and he spun it around briefly, then rapidly thrust it at me again, the fire jumping all around me in a swoosh. It had been cold, but now hot. Too damn hot. I felt the flames lick around me, scorching my skin, a scalding bath leaping all around me, fire surrounding me. I ran as the fire overtook me, blinded. I stumbled about, screaming, a madman. The river, Tiber. I threw myself into it, off the bridge. It was some 30 feet below. A rushing sensation, the fire went out, leaving a horrible burning feeling only partially quelled by the cold water. But my lungs gasped for air, and I splashed helplessly. My muscles burnt and weakened. A horrible scream, encased in water, emerged from my mouth, and slowly I felt my consciousness slip away as if it were falling asleep. A pleasant feeling, like laying on a soft bed, emerged at that last moment. I'm lying in my bed, watching some videos, but I can't pay attention. What's going on in the video? I keep fading in and out, and nothing stays with me. Eventually, I stop the video, put my laptop away, and just fall asleep very quickly. But I don't regain consciousness. There's a carbon monoxide leak, and I never wake up. I'm actually in my bed right now, not up the hill, not down in Trastevere, but I'm also not tired. No, I'm wide awake. My eyes wide and red. I can't fall asleep at all. None of those things happened to me, not yet. I fell asleep briefly and experienced all three of them. A bad dream, or visions of the future, just like that mysterious guy had? I have no idea. I don't know anything anymore. But I'm leaning toward the latter. They could be three possible paths, three different ways of dying. Some are more outlandish than others, of course, but I wonder if fate, whatever that even is not so clear-cut. Are these like different versions of me in parallel universes dying differently each time? If that's the case, then there's also one in which I don't die and wake up like any other day. And perhaps that's all that will happen. These three visions could just be paranoia, brought on by that mysterious guy's claim that I would die tonight. Or the guy was right, and one of these will come true. I honestly don't know. That's why I'm making this blog post. I guess we'll see what happens if I make it to morning or if I die. This might be my last night alive. I guess that's what I meant about this being perhaps a cautionary tale, although I'm just so uncertain right now that I don't know what you guys, any of you reading this, can learn from my experience. Maybe we're not meant to know our futures, and being given some knowledge about it, whether it's true or false, will only tear us apart. So if someone claims they see your future, just walk away. You'll avoid all of my torment. Good night, or goodbye. End of post 2018. That was really good.
Bruh. I had my mic muted, and I was just, oh my god.
Credit to Tarzanboy for digging up that blog post and putting that up on Creepypasta. That was so fucking good.
That was super good, dude.
Oh, dude. The monoxide thing at the end, it was just like, oh, fuck.
She did fucking die.
Dude, this was such a good idea. I'm so glad you suggested we do this.
It felt like a really low stress thing to do.
Yeah.
I mean, like, reading stories is kind of like, it's kind of iffy because if a story's too long, you can really lose people, but like, I'm really glad like this worked out.
It did. It totally worked out. And yeah, this is going to translate really well. I think people are going to enjoy listening to this one. We're definitely doing this again.
Cool.
Going hardcore with the culture.
Culture.
Oh, man. Well, look, this has been a super fun episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. All of you that stuck in and hung around with us and hearing all these wacky stories. And again, if you guys have any suggestions ever, it doesn't have to just be during the show. If something comes to you, if it comes to you in a dream, it's like, oh, I just remember this one. Go ahead and shoot it to us. Twitter, Instagram. You can go into the comments of any of our past YouTube videos or any of the podcast stuff, and let us know what you want to hear, man. We're always down to please the audience, so don't be afraid to shoot out any suggestions. Anyway, I hope you guys dug it, man. We're going to do this again. I had so much fun reading these, and we'll be posting links to the original stories. Make sure we give the authors credit into the show notes and descriptions. So if you want to check out more works by these folks, be sure to check those out. And we will see you guys the next time we come back. In the meantime, Third, have you dug up any new words of wisdom lately?
Oh, fully cook your bacon if you're gonna make bacon pancakes,
And making
and
bacon
then put them in the
pancakes.
then put them in the pancakes.
And then put them in the pancakes. Making bacon pancakes. Bacon pancakes.
Making
bacon pancakes.
Hell yeah!
Oh, I hope the memes never die. All right, ladies and germs, that's going to do it for us tonight. Again, hope you all enjoyed yourselves here with us and enjoyed the show, enjoyed the stories. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other. As always, stay dead.
Wash your hands.
And wash your own motherfucking hands.
And don't trust the cat you found.
It might eat you.